A farmer harvested 6,925 bags of wheat, 1,428 bags of oats, and 973 bags of barley. How many bags of grain did the farmer harvest altogether?
What sort of a problem is that, please, Mark? Plus, all right. Which way is a good way to set it out?
Up and down.
Up and down, but never do a maths addition across the page. You will just make so many silly mistakes as a joke. And some of you still do it. Number on top of the other, and then subtract. Very simple. Right, number 6.
A farmer has 6,321 sheep. Because of dry conditions, he wished to reduce his flock to 4,500 sheep. How many sheep must he dispose of?
Kelly, a printing machine can print 6,500 sheets an hour. How many sheets will the machine print in a run of 11 hours? What type of problem is that, Cameron? Times. Right. Like the clock on the wall. Read that one out, please.
How many 2.5 kilograms packets of flour can be made up from 1 tonne of flour?
And that one is going to require a bit of thinking. Something you can look up tonight. You don't really know. A truck carrying 73 sheep, how many trips would be necessary to move a flock of 8 in the room? Actually, a game of charades. And Adele was trying to get the message across to us about the movie Jaws 2. And she walked across the front of the room doing this, see? And every time something funny happens now, that's our way of clapping something ridiculous or funny. Okay? Let's see a bit of that clap again, eh? For Mr. Dyer. Okay. Bradley and any other house captains, seems they had the privilege of getting their badges today. How many do we end up with? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 house captains from the room. I stand back a little bit. That's the idea. Well, that's a big giveaway because somebody's going to know somebody's not at the front. You're in charge.
Samantha? Luke? No, Samantha. Andrew?
Okay.
Stand up.
You can now charge a little bit now.
Tommy?
You're supposed to.
Tommy?
Cameron.
Yes, Jeremy.
Kelly?
No.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Deanne Reid had something to tell us at morning talk this morning and didn't get up and tell us. You the same group? Sorry? Yeah, how about you work with Kelly? Do you work with Kelly?
No, you're doing it now.
You would like to work together?
Ready?
I disappeared. Tobacco. Is it K? W? A? Yep. Beauty.
Does it fit perfectly? It's got room for you to grow. Look at that. That was great. A big effort. And of course, Kelly Pace raised 42 or 43. But she just got pipped by Lisa Seaman, who raised $57. All right. When it comes to spelling, when you know that you have to say the word correctly, you think about it and spell it correctly, just like Dione would do in class. The other person should write them out neatly as if it were a test. When you have given 10 to one, say give 10 to the other. What are you doing? If you said to go up, yeah. And I'll give you
Mr. Happy. Mr. Happy is a very happy person, as we all know. He is very happy because every day he drinks Mr. Milk. Mr. Milk is a beautiful milk drink that keeps you happy the whole day through. Mr. Snow in the Miraculous Mr. Milk. Once upon a time there lived 3 children, Sarah, Wayne and Karen. It was nearly Christmas and excitement had started to grow in their hearts. Snow had fallen over their house and the fields beyond. Mr. Daydream. Once upon a time there was a little man called Mr. Daydream who was always daydreaming. One night he went to the movies. He was daydreaming there too. When everybody went home, Mr. Daydream was still there.
Little Miss Scatterbrain. Once upon a time, little Miss Scatterbrain was going for a walk when she saw a shop. On the shop window was a sign that read, "Good for you, Mr. Milk."
The story of how Mr. Uppy became a nice, sweet, well-mannered person. So good he said, Mr. Uppy, Mr. Milk, it makes you very happy.
Little Miss Trouble and Mr. Mischief in Mr. Milk Saves the Day. Mr. Mischief was dying with laughter. He had just played one of his practical jokes on Mr. Crooks, the owner of the local milk bar. He had tipped all the milk out of their carton.
Before Mr. Clever started to drink Mr. Milk, he was called Mr. Dumb, the dumbest person in the world. Mr. Nonsense. Once upon a time in the woods, there was a cottage by the mountain. In the cottage lived Mr. Nonsense. One day, Mr. Nelson spent 2 years with Mr. Lazy. One day, Mr. Lazy was so lazy that he forgot to get up that day. He had an appointment for a job. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Ding dong. Come in, replied Mr. Lazy. He opened the door.
One day Mr. Strong was walking down the road and he saw a milk bar. He went inside and bought a dozen eggs for breakfast, half a dozen Mr. Milks. Then he went home, opened the door.
Mr. Skinny. One day there lived a little skinny man. His name was Mr. Skinny. He was very skinny. He lived in a skinny house and drank out of a skinny glass. He drank skinny milk. One day he was walking down the street in Skinnyville. He saw a sign. It said, "Drink Mr. Milk." So he went to a Mr. Milk bar and brought some Mr. Milk. He loved it and it made him strong. He was nearly as strong as Mr. Strong after that, but he didn't look quite as strong as Mr. Strong.
One day, Mr. Greedy was eating apples. He is on his big apple and he is getting fatter. One day, a truck drove past with Mr. Milk.
Mr. Dizzy. Once there was a man called Mr. Dizzy. Whenever he bumped into something, he would always spin around and get dizzy. One day when he was walking down the street, and he went into a milk bar and bought paper.
Mr. Bum. One day Mr. Bum was looking through the papers for a job while he was drinking Mr. Milk. Just then, an idea came to Mr. Bum. He said, "Why don't I go and work at the Mr. Milk factory?"
It was a nice sunny morning in the land of Tickle. You probably don't know what Tickle is, do you? Well, I'll tell you. Tickles are people that go around tickling people, like the milkman, postman, school teacher and other people. One day the postman came to Mr. Tickle's house to give him his milk.
One day, Mr. Quiet went to school with his friends, Mr. Milk, Mr. Swirl and little Miss Tiny. When Mr. Quiet was at school, he always got in trouble because he always shouts in the classroom.
Mr. Bounce. Mr. Bounce, as you know, can't stop bouncing. He's always trying to stop himself from bouncing. Then one day, Mr. Strong told him to drink Mr. Milk. He said that Mr. Milk had made him strong in the first place.
This is the story of Mr. Messy. He is the messiest person in the whole world. No one was as messy as Mr. Messy was. In the morning, he rolled out of his unmade bed, walked straight down his filthy stairs and had breakfast. After breakfast, Mr. Messy was bored. Mr. Messy said, "I'm going to cook something now." So he went into his messy kitchen and started. He put everything good into the pot. First he put some cheese, then fruit, and then he said, "This looks like milk, not ordinary milk. This is Mr. Milk."
One day I saw a man. His name was Mr. Noisy, and he drank Mr. Milk, and he drank it all down, and he became a rather quiet little fellow.
Mr. Chatterbox. Once upon a time there lived a man named Mr. Chatterbox. Because he talked so much, his wife left him. Then one day Mr. Chatterbox was walking past the dairy and saw a sign. It said, "New drink called Mr. Milk. Why not try it?"
Once upon a time, there was a man named Mr. Silly. He lived in a funny country. It was called a colourful country. You see, in colourful country, tree leaves are purple and the tree trunks are blue.
Once upon a time lived a small man named Mr. Small. He lived on a hill in the countryside where it was peaceful and quiet. The only person who visited him was the milkman. Was the only person who fit through the door.
Hi, I'm Mr. Topsy-Turvy. Well, actually, I was Mr. Topsy-Turvy, but now I'm the most tidiest person you've met. I put my hat on straight, shoes on the right feet. I'll tell you what happened.
One fine and warm summer morning, Mr. Sneeze was sitting next to his window, and then all of a sudden he sneezed.
Mr. Milk Singers, Mr. Milk Choir, Mr. Grumpy, Mr. Daydream, Mr. Missy, Miss Shy, Miss Quiet, Miss Naughty, Mr. Lazy, and terrible, terrible Mr. Fussy. Mr. Milk himself. Okay, 1, 2.
Mr. Milk makes Mr. Grumpy sweet, Mr. Daydream wide awake, and Mr. Messy neat. Miss Shy says hi when Mr. Milk goes by. Good for you, Mr. Milk. Ah, Mr. Milk makes Mr. Quiet shout hooray. Miss Naughty nice and Mr. Lazy leap about. Mr. Fussy says yum, why just lowering my tongue. Good for you, Mr. Milk. Ah, Mr. Milk makes Mr. Grumpy sweet. Mr. Daydream wide awake and Mr. Messy neat. Hooray! Good for you, Mr. Milk. Miss Shy says hi when Mr. Milk goes by.
Hi.
Good for you, Mr. Milk. Mr. Milk makes Mr. Quiet shout hooray. Mr. Mr. Lazy leap about. Good for you, Mr. Milk. Mr. Fussy says
Yum! I just love it in my tongue.
good for you, Mr. Milk. Mr. Milk makes Mr. Grumpy sweet. Mr. Daydream wide awake and Mr. Messy neat. Miss Shy says hi when Mr. Milk goes by. Good for you, Mr. Milk. Ah, Mr. Milk makes Mr. Quiet shout hooray. Miss Naughty nice and Mr. Lazy leap about. Mr. Fussy says yum, I just love it in my tongue. Good for you, Mr. Milk.
The second run through down a little and give the actors time to act. It was pretty for an audience. More practice too at cutting in at the right time for good for you, Mr. Milk. That's the hardest thing because you people are watching these people. You want to see what their expressions are going to be. So you want with Sally. Let's try that again, please. Together, go. You're not being very considerate. At all. Number 4, read that.
20 times 36 equals 9 equals something.
Third one, make sure you open and close your brackets properly.
Open brackets says something.
Number 4.
30 times 54 equals something.
Number what's your answer going to be? 12? It's going to be 26. Make sure torturing him, worked back and solved it. So it was hard to follow. He said, it would be much more sensible to do what. And there's a doozy for your spelling book. Maybe if you get back into historic times, absolutely historic. I am going to get my work on the video by producing some heart attack material. Right? Luke's book. A Boy George effort. It's a miracle. Should all the right home.